Welcome to the Hidden Gifts of Loss podcast. I'm your host, Julie Trainer. And on this show, we reflect on losses that we've experienced in life and how they have shaped us and transformed us and helped us grow. And we talk about who we are now as a result. And today I have the lovely Ann-Marie Maloney on the show with me. Hi, Ann-Marie. She's a delight. She is an educator, a writer, a spoken word coach. She's the host of the podcast About This Life, and she is the founder of the Facebook group Becoming Enough. And through losses, she has discovered what it means to be enough. And so we're going to talk about that today and find out how we can be enough too. So, Ann-Marie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Julie.
So, tell us about being enough. What does that look like for you?
Oh my goodness, being enough. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your show. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. In terms of becoming enough, so much we spend our lives striving to do something. For example, I remember in my 20s and 30s. I wasn't always an educator. I actually worked in social marketing before changing careers. So we spend our lives, the proverbial phrase is climbing the corporate ladder.
Mhm.
We have meetings to present. We have places, events that we need to be. And there's this certain image that we have to carry on because we feel that other people will not respect us if we do not fit into a box.
Mhm. Mhm.
I remember very well when I worked in corporate, when I worked in a public relations firm. I used to wear suits and the kitten heels, the stockings. You remember stockings, Julie?
Oh
Oh,
my
how did
God.
I ever
Oh,
do
I'm so glad that's over. Oh, they were so uncomfortable.
They were so uncomfortable, and especially in the summertime, but you still had to wear your stockings. So we strive to meet these expectations. It becomes a question of, do these expectations align with who we are? Or do they create unnecessary tension? Like the Christian leader Beth Moore would say, well, she did a series called The Quest in terms of self-reflection. And she goes, well, who told you that? Who told you you had to wear stockings? There are alternatives to suits sometimes. Of course, you want to be business appropriate, but it's reaches a point where you stop pretending and you present yourself who you are so that we're not code switching. And by code switching, I mean, I'm one way at home, I'm another way when I am at work, I'm another way when I'm in front of the kids because I'm an educator. That is exhausting. So
Yes.
becoming enough is the realization that we are all God's creatures. We are already enough. We are enough because we live in his sufficiency. So wherever we are imperfect, God is there with his grace, his mercy. And so we can just rest in being who we are.
Amen. I have not heard the term code switching, but I remember when I was in corporate, and that's exactly what it was like. You walked in that building and you had to become somebody else and hold on to that by the skin of your teeth until you left.
And you
Into who
remember,
you are.
you have to make sure you have to appear a certain way for the boss because you because you don't want to disappoint the boss or give them any reason to find deficiency in your performance. It was all performative. We had to make sure that we fit into the culture of the environment where we worked.
And especially if the big wigs were coming in. I remember they would tell us, "Now clean off your desk and look busy." And not that we weren't busy, but yeah, it's just You don't know who these people are. Why
Yes,
should it
yes.
matter what they think, you know? Yeah. So tell me, how did going through some of the losses that you have experienced contribute to you realizing that you are enough?
Yeah, they do. I have to tell you, when we hear the word lost, we might think automatically of death,
Mhm.
someone transitioning. Loss still means a certain, there is a certain stage of dying for me, but there are different ways of loss.
Mhm.
I can tell you, Julie, I lost both of my parents, and each one, in terms of their transition, evokes memories.
Mhm.
But I'd like your audience to know there are different things that we grieve.
Oh, yes.
We grieve, we grieve the loss of a job.
Mhm.
We grieve the loss of ourselves because we change and we evolve.
Yeah.
We grieve the loss of expectations, and sometimes the expectations that we project onto others.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. I call myself being the adult in the room, but my children, oh, they teach me. My boys, I have two sons, they are adults, 31 and 27.
Mhm.
One of the things about when they were young, how I brought them up, and all of the plethora of activities that I exposed them to, I had an example, an image in my mind about what my sons would be like when they grow up,
Mhm.
that how they would walk in terms of their adulthood, who they accompany, who would they be around, the places they would do. I had that all mapped up. I said, they're gonna
Mhm.
go to, of course, they're gonna go to college, they're gonna go here, they're gonna do this, da 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 da. Well, turns out they have their own personalities.
Yep.
So it's interesting. One of the things that I lost is what I expected of my children. And when I reflect back, it was so unfair. It was so
Mhm.
unfair on them that,
Um,
yes, as a parent, you have to make decisions, as
mhm.
you should, because when children are young, they don't always know the consequence or where their decisions will lead them. That is obvious, right?
Mhm.
But we want to be able to invite them into the conversation, to ask them, how are they feeling? You had to choose between A and B. Which one would you choose? Why did you choose this way? And let mommy or daddy help you with that in terms of decision making. Uh, I don't mean to suggest that a child takes over the home. I don't come from that.
Mhm.
And I will never be that. It's just like, this is my house.
That's right.
This is my house.
Mhm.
Still, no, that's my boundary. It's my house.
Mhm. That's
But
right.
at the same time, as adults, they have made some decisions and chosen some paths. And I don't mean to be mysterious, but I don't want to share their truth
Of
because I'm
course.
sharing mine. It's that I had to adjust.
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
to adjust to who they are.
Yeah.
I had to grieve myself as a parent, and by extension, I'm divorced from their father. So I had to grieve what I thought our family would be.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I would say at the root of loss, whether it is death, an actual physical death, or your children growing up on you, is core things like abandonment,
Mhm.
rejection, fear of being alone. All of those things are roots that are, if you think of a tree root and they're intertwined, it might be intertwined with things like control
Mhm.
and grief and expectation that is intertwined with these things about abandonment and rejection. So it's all mixed up together.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it's all a lie. different levels of loss and different, yeah, and that's such a good point, about expectations, especially for your children. I have a daughter, and
Mhm.
she's chosen a situation that I would not have chosen for her,
Mhm.
but she's making it work, right? So
Yeah,
I understand,
right.
the grieving of, wow, why did you move so far away?
I mentioned there are things you can grieve, like a job. You can grieve making a change from a business office, such that I did, to go into teaching. Uh, There is this whole language and culture you have to learn, that you have to adjust to. You have to take a look at where you fit
Mhm.
in that situation. So I've had to evolve, and how that fits with becoming enough is to say that I did the things for example, I had to go back to school and get my master's,
Mhm.
since teaching was not my undergraduate degree. And one of the things that I am proud of is that I'm a national board certified teacher.
Mm.
So I fulfill a certain amount of requirements to say that, hey, Ann-Marie is qualified. The enough part comes in that when I have 125 students in front of me, I have 4 classes. I teach middle school.
Ooh,
So,
wow.
so yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's a tough age.
Wow. Here's an example of knowing that I'm enough. 125 souls, new ones every single year. I know that I am going to do my best as a teacher to guide them, to help them to understand the subject matter. However, I know that I might not reach all 125 in this moment.
Mm.
That for many of them, because they're middle school, it will be years
Mhm.
before they understand what it is that I try to teach them. Because when I teach English, I I use it as a metaphor for life.
Mhm.
In terms of, in English, you have to analyze.
Mhm.
And so in life, you have to make choices. So I try to make those connections for them. There are also some souls that I'm not the teacher that's going to reach them. It's going
Mhm.
to be a teacher further down the line.
Mhm.
My first years of teaching would drive myself crazy because I wanted every single to be quote unquote success. And again, the success as I define it, or as the tests define it, what have you. However, being enough is understanding that I'm not responsible for, I guess, the outcome,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
is diametrically opposed to what educators are taught, because we're taught that, of course, we want to raise test scores,
Mhm.
and that is an outcome, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, yes.
But I understand that I'm not going to be that child's only teacher.
Mhm.
And so there will be other teachers along their way that is going to be in their world, in your circle, who can also make an impact. And
Mhm.
so I had to understand I am enough of a
Yes.
teacher. I'm
Yes.
good enough.
Mhm.
I don't have to stay awake late at night worrying, was
Mhm.
that lesson great or not?
Yes. You show up and you bring your best self, and that's what you can offer to them, and it's not your responsibility what the other teachers will offer and what is going to click with them. Maybe it won't click with you, but it might click with somebody else. But you know that you're bringing the best Anne-Marie that you can bring to those kids
Absolutely.
that day. Wow, middle school. So what
Mhm.
led you to this transition from corporate to, was it a calling you felt, or what, how did that transition come about?
It came about again because of my boy. I
Ah,
work in social marketing, and that what that term means We've heard of public relations. That's a team puts together media releases, might make commercials, create messages for clients, so on and so forth. Except instead of doing that for products, like trying to sell you a car,
Mhm.
uh, we do that for issues. Like one of the campaigns I worked on was the National Immunization Campaign. So our client was the Department of Health and Human Services. So we had to craft messages to encourage the community in several cities that, yes, you need to go get your child immunized. So that is the type of work that I did. And I loved it, by the way. I loved it. But it was the job where you did the work until it was done. So if it's 7 o'clock and the work isn't done, what do you mean you're going home? And I'm just like, look, my babysitter, when it was after 6 o'clock p.m. is like $1 a minute.
Yeah.
I have to take two buses and the train to get home. That's another hour and 15-minute drive. Because
Oh,
at that time I wasn't driving in the city and I was like, I have children to raise.
mm,
It was basically to fit my boys' schedule
yep. That makes
and
perfect sense.
yeah, to fit their schedule to be with them. And that's when they were small. That's
Yeah.
when they were like 5, 6 years old and 3 years old. And it's
Yeah,
just
that's a
like it was
critical
too many
time.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, they need their mama at that time.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, good for you. That's awesome. Yeah. And
Thank
you
you.
yeah, and so also I want to know about your spoken word coaching. That sounds very intriguing. How long have you been doing that? You have a beautiful voice, by the way. I just love listening to
Oh,
your
thank
voice.
you. Thank you. Spoken word. I have a phrase that I've shared with some people around me. I said, poetry finds me. I think
Mm,
about, let me say it again, poetry finds me. I
love that.
teach reading language arts, right? That is analysis. So the analysis comes from your brain. So if somebody gives you their opinion, is it biased? How do you know it's biased or not? You have to use your brain for that. Okay. Whereas poetry comes from your heart.
Mhm,
Poetry delves into your soul. What is your heart feeling? Okay. What is the emotion behind the words? Oftentimes, it's harder to write poetry than it is to write prose because it's fewer words that have to say so much. The one thing about poetry is that it transcends because I think of Maya Angelou, some of the greats, right?
mhm.
Amanda Gorman, poet laureate recently, be the light you carry. One line means something different to Julie than it does to me. It also is visceral. Be the light. We are the light we carry. That might not be the exact words, but I'm paraphrasing. That hits me differently. It hits us differently because of our life experience,
Mhm.
what has transpired in our life. So I've been teaching spoken word to my students, I would say almost 15 years now. I've been a teacher for 24 years. So I've been teaching for 2/3 of my career.
Mhm.
Only in the last couple of years have I begun to actually do my own poetry. So
Oh,
I work with a teaching artist, Reggie Cabico, who's amazing. He is amazing. Reggie introduced me to the stage because uh, my kids competed and it would end at the school competition. But can you imagine your kids competing at a place like Busboys and Poets? And that's like a coffee house where adults go to compete. And then
ooh,
I recently just finished spoken word at the National Portrait Gallery.
that is so cool.
Yeah, but I want to go back to loss again for a moment. My parents.
Mhm, mhm.
I would love to share their story.
Yes, please.
With my father's passing, who passed earlier than my mom, like 20, 30 years. My father, okay, I'm trying to get my words together because the emotions are coming.
Take your time. Mm.
He had cancer. Okay. The interesting thing about dad, and he wasn't with my mother at the time. Uh, we have a family history that is much too long. It should be a book. But they were, at the moment, they weren't together. Uh, Daddy walks me down the aisle. I'm the third of his daughters. You know, he has 5 kids with my mom, and I'm the baby girl. To have that moment,
Mhm.
to have that moment was impactful for him, impactful for me.
Yeah.
And it was impactful because the year that I did get married, that was the year he passed, like 6 months later.
Oh.
The thing about his passing, though, is that I didn't get a chance to say goodbye because he was in and out the hospital. And this time, the last time, he was in the hospital, and brother called and said, "Come home." And I remember it was a Thursday because Ann-Marie, you know, newly married, newly minted, young. I'm like, well, I got to go to work. I
Mhm.
went to work on Friday
Mhm.
with the intention of catching the bus to New York on Friday evening. Uh, he passed. And before I can get there, the reason why that is so visceral for me is the time that he passed, like 4 p.m.
Mhm.
I felt it. I
Mhm.
can't just,
Mhm.
I,
Mhm. Mhm.
I just knew
Yep. Yeah.
there was a knowing. Like when I talked with my family later that evening to say I'm on the bus, I already knew. I
Yeah.
felt it in my spirit. So that taught me you need to tell the people that you love them every day,
Mhm. Absolutely.
no matter the relationship.
Yeah.
Mommy. Okay. And I'm sharing my different experiences with you because for people who are listening, we handle grief differently. And I certainly handled grief differently than my siblings. And I want to say and reassure everybody that part of uh, becoming enough is that it's okay to feel what you feel.
Mhm. Yes.
Mommy, backbone of the family,
Mm.
the matriarch of
Mhm.
our extended family in terms of our cousins, aunties, uncles, mommy. You know, she's
Yeah.
the elder.
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
But mommy had suffered
Mm.
because mommy had a series of several strokes, I would say, over like a 10-year period.
Ooh.
She was ambulatory till the day she left. Um, she had dementia.
Mhm.
But mommy remembered every single one of us. She
Oh.
remembered our names and she remembered who we were. So if I walked into the room, mommy knew exactly who we were, which when you talk about hidden gifts, that was a gift.
Mm.
Mommy, and how we knew she had dementia, like for example, she would think that she still had to go to work in the morning. And she was a nurse, or she would talk about taking care of the houses. We're from the islands, so she had property in the islands, and she would talk about taking care of all this property. I'm just like, mommy, we have all, and one of the things that people don't understand with people with dementia, that you try to correct them. That's our natural instinct.
Mm,
I learned not to do that. So
mm-mm.
when she would tell me, "Oh, she has, we have to go take care of the 7 houses," I said, "Mommy, we have that many houses. Let's go." So I would play around with her. Oh, I remember another time when she was in the hospital. Mommy would she was peeling off the monitors off of her fingers,
Uh-huh.
heart monitor, and she called me and she whispered and she said, "Ann-Marie, you have to help me get out of here. I need to leave because she's experiencing something called sundown syndrome." And those of you who have family members, rather than fight with
With
her,
her. Mhm.
rather than insist, "No, mommy, keep it on," I leaned over and said, "Mommy, I'm looking for a husband, and maybe one of the doctors who come in here might be my husband.
Oh my god, that's so clever.
So, mom, if you stay, somebody might walk in the room." And that's how I got mom. And mom, she just laughed.
Oh my god.
Because at that time I was divorced, and she just laughed. I said, "So, mommy, can you just keep it on for right now? Because the doctor's gonna come, and that might be the one, mommy."
Oh.
So that was my relationship with mom. But in terms of when she passed, I know this might sound um I'm trying to word it delicately
Mhm.
so it doesn't come across abrasive. But I was the sibling that was glad when mommy left.
Mhm. 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 Yeah.
I was glad mommy left. She was 92 years old. Her body was wasted. She was less than 100 pounds. She had feeding tubes
Mhm.
feeding her. She slept like 23 out of 24 hours.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I know who Jesus is. Mommy knows who Jesus is. I wanted her to be free of pain. That was my wish for mommy. So when mommy left, I was relieved.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, my siblings, in every family you have dynamic relationships, and it's not my place to speak their truth because it's theirs.
Right.
Um, I think of one of my siblings who took care of mommy in terms of financially. Another one took care of mommy in terms of keeping up with all the medications that she had to take and all the doctor's appointments and so on and so forth. Um, Another one lived in the same house that I grew up in, but he didn't have the capacity to help. So and the fourth one is living out of state because we're in Maryland and mommy was in New York. All of us had a different experience
Mhm.
about mommy's going. Some wanted mommy to stay, to hold on, and I was the one who wanted mommy, go ahead, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
We're grown.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
go rest.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I hear that. It doesn't sound abrasive at all. I hear
Yeah.
that, watching my mother, deteriorate from pancreatic cancer. I mean, there's a relief when they are out
Mhm.
of pain and they're not suffering anymore. And it's like in some ways it's like hard to reconcile within yourself. It's like, should I feel this way? But
Mhm.
yes, that was her time, it was her path, and she stopped
Right.
suffering, and, like, I was with her for the whole 10 weeks, so I watched the progression, I saw it every day, whereas my brother,
Mhm.
it was COVID, so there wasn't as much visiting going on as, there would have been, but he got to a
Mhm.
certain point where he just said, "I just don't wanna I wanna remember her
Mhm.
this way." Not, the way she was going. And so,
Right.
yes, even within the same family, everybody experiences that loss differently.
We
And
do. We
yeah.
do. And you know what it does as well? It brings us to our own thoughts about when we go,
Oh, yes.
you know?
Good
It
point.
brings us to a reckoning,
Mhm.
to see your parent. You read about it, but you always think about that's somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Do you know what that feels like?
Mhm.
Okay, the news comes on and there's a story and or a neighbor might say, oh, they have 24-hour care. And I said, "Yeah, oh, okay, you're absorbing and processing the information, but
Mhm.
when it comes to your loved one, it hits you differently. It's you're reckoning with your own mortality rather than focus on the loss. And to play on the words from your podcast, hidden gifts. Here are the lessons learned. Have a will. That
Yeah. Oh my
part.
gosh, yes.
Have a will. It reduces arguments. It says exactly what you want to have happen. Be generous in your will.
Mhm.
The house that I'm sitting in, um, the down payment for this home came from my auntie, mommy's sister, who passed on before her,
Mhm.
who left funds for her nieces and nephews.
Mhm.
Without that gift, I mean, I had enough to pay a mortgage every month, but I didn't have a down payment. Her gift I used for a down payment. So have a will, understand the cost of care
S
as people age, and have a plan for that. You
Mhm.
know, I did not come from a family where we had family meetings or we had conversations about because to talk about death seemed to be so morbid to
Right.
so many people.
Mhm.
They don't want to have the conversation. It's almost like if you talk about it, they think, okay, that then you're talking that person death. But no, you need to know how expensive it can be and have a plan for how the family will pull together
Yes.
to afford that. And then the last part, in terms of, a life lesson, exercise.
Mhm.
I say exercise because as we get older, 20 years ago, I'm doing Zumba. I'm
Yeah.
doing Zumba because Zumba's fun. Give me music anytime, any day. Which by the way, I inherit from my mom because she liked to dance. I'm
Aw.
doing Zumba. I'm jumping up. I can't jump anymore. But I tell you what I do. I do go to the gym.
Mhm.
And when I go to the gym, it's strength
Yes.
because our bones, as we age, as not anything would, it begins to deteriorate. We don't have the same hormones as we did when we were
Mm.
younger.
No, we don't.
Pain comes in our joints. Every morning you wake up and you're just like, that wasn't there yesterday.
Right?
Yes. And so I say, in all seriousness, to be as physically fit as you can,
Yes.
because to have to handle health issues as you get older, it's
Mhm.
a weight.
Yeah.
Whereas, if I think of we're so prone to diabetes or high blood pressure in our communities. But if you think about heart issues and heart attacks, there's plaque building up in your heart.
Mhm.
You have a chance to do something differently now so you can be
Yeah.
around for your family. You have a chance to take care of your body. You
Mhm.
have the opportunity to keep your mobility as long as you can, because there might come a day when you can't drive anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
There might come a day when you can't walk down the street anymore. You want to prolong your agility as much as possible.
Mhm.
So move,
Yes.
exercise.
You know what? That is such a good point. In the last year, I lost 40 pounds and I started going to the gym and just changed my relationship to food. And a lot of the aches and pains that I used to have are gone. And I have a very good friend who is essentially bedridden when I help her out.
Mhm.
But yeah, seeing the things like that, the loss of mobility, it helps you, like you said, just take care of it now, you know? We have to appreciate what we have right
Take
now
care of
and
it now,
prolong it.
and also you would be on less medications. For example, I'm
Absolutely.
taking vitamin supplements, vitamin D. I take magnesium, but so many people are on medication for this and for that. You want to take fewer medications, exercise. Check your diet, check your nutrition.
Yes. And I would add one more thing to your list. Pre-plan your final arrangements, if you can.
Mm,
My parents did that, and that was a gift to us because when the
hmm.
time came, all we had to do was make a phone call to the
Yes.
mortuary, and they weren't doing funerals during COVID, so they did pay for that, which we did not get to have, but nevertheless, in that moment, you don't want to
Hmm.
be, that happened to my daughter's boyfriend. The family was never in a position to do anything like that. So when the time came,
Right.
they were still not in a position to cover those expenses, and it put a lot of strain on everybody. So if you can make
Exactly.
those arrangements, yes, these are all really good points to leave
All things,
our
do them
listeners
now.
with. Absolutely, because it's true, we don't wanna talk about those things, especially we don't wanna talk about it with our parents, and it's going to be better for everybody in the long run, in the end, if we talk that way now, so,
Yeah.
wow, Anne-Marie, is there anything else besides those wonderful words of wisdom that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
I just would like our listeners to know that you are special in your own very way. Once you come to the realization that you're here and you're here for a purpose, your purpose will find you.
Mm,
And once you walk in that purpose, you can make the mind, body, soul connection to understanding that you are a gift, you
mm,
know. So, yes,
yes. Amen. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for being my guest today. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
my pleasure, Julie.